Hello, 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 and welcome back to SCOUTCAST, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, or as I'm going to change my name to FPL Red Arrow. Also joining us tonight is somebody that can't take that nickname, FPL Green Arrow, also known as FPL Nacho. How's it going, Nacho? If somebody would have told you before the season started that by game week 4 you'd be 2.6 million and carrying the Scoutcast team, what would you have said? God, you got such a lucky wife. Carry on. Nacho, are you on mute, mate? Hang on. Hibbo, can you talk for me? Oh, somehow you two are on mute again. Oh, fantastic. Hang on. I don't know how to. I don't know how to change this now. He's not on mute. It's me. I don't know why that's happened. Is that? Hang on. Can you talk again, please, boys? It was working absolutely fine just now, and now it's changed for some reason. I don't know why. Hang on.
I think that's fair.
Let's see. It should be back.
Hello? Are we working?
I reckon it will come back on now. I'm confident. It was a good start, wasn't it? I don't know why the sound went again. It's really temperamental, this thing.
Let us know in the chat. Can you hear us?
I'm pretty sure we're back. Alan Zared says, best to only hear Andy anyway. Exactly. Got you now. It's working. Lovely. Thank you very much, chat. That's why you're here. Thank you so much. So for all those that weren't listening, obviously I'll go back to Nacho. So Nacho, obviously 2.6 million and somehow you're top of the Scoutcast, boys. How does that feel?
I know. Like I said, end of the day, it feels good to be top of the Scoutcast, but I want all of us to be bathing in green arrows. And until we get that moment, I am not going to be a happy man. So we're here as a team. We ain't celebrating one green arrow until we get 3. And like I said, 2.6 million. It's not exactly anything to cheer about, is it really? But again, those that are panicking right now, loads of chips have been used. Hence why a lot of people are ranked in the millions right now who haven't used a chip.
Yeah, I mean, I had 11 greens in a row and thought, this game's the easiest game in the world. Now I can't even remember what it feels like. I genuinely, I'm sat here now thinking, I'm so jealous of you, Nacho. So jealous.
Last season, you were on flames. You've used all it up.
I'm so jealous of your 2.6 million rank. I'm so jealous. Hibbo, we're also joined by you this evening. I'm assuming we can hear you. How's it going?
It's a tough pod this week, I think. I feel like I'm in a dark place. I think anybody that knows me, I like to sing when I'm winning. I get that arrogance on me when I'm going well. And this is the complete opposite. Like, this is wallow in the self-pity kind of stage. And we were texting on WhatsApp tonight, and 2 things I need. I need my mates to rally around me, and I need a wildy spin, because the only thing that's going to make me feel better is if we've got a wildy spin. If I get both those things, I think all's going to be right in the world again. So,
well, just as well you say that. And obviously you wanted your mates around you. Here we are. You said you wanted a wheel, and I've got you a wheel. Of course I've got you a wheel. So tonight we are going to be looking at our points, because not for very long, but we will maybe focus on Nacho's points a little bit longer than anybody else's. We've got the XGI tables, we've got the CBIT tables. There are 2 players that are still 100% for getting their DEFCON every week. We've got the Wheel of Washed. That's right. The Wheel of Washed. Are these players washed or are they not? So we've got some of those to come up. We've got some Rob T graphics. We've got fixtures. We've got the com teams. I don't know what to do about the com teams anymore. I feel like we need another com team of just players that don't know what they're doing, because I don't think I'm going to beat them again this year. And then we've got our bust teams and a bit of a Q&A at the end as well. Some people saying the sound's going in and out. Usually, if you refresh, it sorts itself out. Let's have a look at some points. So here's my points this week. I got 57 this week, which, to be honest, I did Match of the Day challenge on Saturday with Az, so I didn't see any results until 10:50 at night on Saturday with 8 games. Hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Did you?
Hated doing Match of the Day. Yeah, because there was just so many games on, and all the way throughout the day I was thinking, lineups are out now. Oh, these games will be at half time now. I wonder what's going on. Little did I know, there was basically clean sheets galore, and I didn't have any of them. So I had Sells in goal with 1 point. Brilliant. Wasn't expecting a lot from him anyway. Porro was 6, Richards was 6, and Munoz with 5. Munoz with my transfer in for 8 Nori. Yes, I am part of the cartel. I got Munoz in for 8 Nori before the price rise, and 8 Nori was injured, which we all knew about because I was in that group chat. Anderson got me 4. I was thrilled with his DEFCON points there, 4 points. I was thinking about doing Anderson to Semenyo. Less said about that, the better. Salah captain with 18 points. Very, very lucky there, getting a penalty in the last minute. Fernandez with 2. Wirtz with 3. I cheer his 3 points now. It's ridiculous. Reijnders with 3, who missed not an open goal, but missed a very easy one-on-one against Beindir. Pedro with 7. Watkins with 2. And then actually, my bench could have replaced a lot of my starting 11. I had Dubravka with 3, who got 2 points more than Sells. Steve, who got 4 points, who I could have easily played instead of one of my Bruno, for instance. And then Murillo, who got me 3, who got DEFCON when I didn't play him. So 57 points and about 900k red arrow down to 4.9 million. So yeah, not the best of weeks, but let's not dwell on that for too long, because Nacho, oi, got yourself 69.
Giggity, giggity.
Giggity. My favourite. Yeah, so, I mean, it's a great game week in the context of it, with a week where people are playing free hits, wildcards, etc. So we'll take any sort of green arrow. But let's be honest, it's a bit lucky, isn't it? Like, this is a lucky game week. The only one, so I'll just quickly go through the team and then I'll talk about the inspirational picks that I have made in the lucky ones. So Sanchez with the 2-pointer, obviously, like, Chelsea are just, I've said this for a few weeks, I think defensively we are just not that good. We were really lucky against Fulham to get that clean sheet. VAR have come out and said that they made the mistake, but obviously the 2-pointer there against Brentford is just, is what it is, really. It's not ideal. But the back three saved me. Pedro Porro and Van de Ven. 20 points between them, 14 for Van de Ven with that goal. It's just ridiculous, really. I basically played the two in the hope that I would get something to get a goal from Van de Ven and double clean sheet. It's just jammy, isn't it? So we will take it. West Ham, thankfully, I believe they had a goal ruled out, or they had a real big chance of Paqueta miss, whatever it was, but still will take it. And then Anderson is the one that I definitely am actually, like, I could see that happening. A clean sheet, defensive contributions. We kind of know that with him, so that one was kind of expected. The rest of the team could just go in the bin, to be honest. I mean, Dewsbury Hall, 2 points. Reijnders was my transfer in for Ismail Assar. I just didn't really like any of the alternatives. And I think Reijnders coming in means that I haven't forced myself to free hit in game week 6 now, which is ideal. Rodgers with 3 points. I mean, terrible. Bruno Fernandes with the 2. Watkins with 2. And then the other returns was João Pedro with a very weird 2 bonus points to get 7. Yeah. And then Mo Salah with that last minute penalty, like a lot of people had. So good game week on the face of it. I'll put my hands up and say really lucky. I don't mind my team, but like a lot of people right now sat here with double Aston Villa, it's a bit of a headache.
I mean, that defence, mate. Van de Ven and Anderson getting you 24 points between them. Absolute glorious stuff. Glorious stuff. Hibbo, let's move on to you. Oh, 54 points. Let's move on to you, mate. Talk us through it.
I was going to say I'll run through my game week points, which doesn't really have any points. But anyway, I did one transfer this week. This was a stinker. So I basically did Romero de Munoz, which was a net loss of 7 points because Romero got a clean sheet. He got an assist. I think he got bonus. Romero could have had a goal, and it was legit. Yeah, I think legitimately ruled out, for like a push, which wasn't really a push. So he could have scored even more. And it's a bit of a sliding doors moment, this, because the easy route for me was to go Sardi Semenyo. And if I had went Sardi Semenyo, kept Romero, I would have been, I think, 19 points to the good overall. So not great. But anyway, I'll just go kind of back to front for the podcast here, folks. So Sanchez in goal with a 2-pointer. Porro with a clean and 6. Anderson did the God's work, so he got 10 points, clean bonus and DEFCON. Munoz with just 5. Salah's been stinking the place up, but he got 9 times 2. Last minute penalty. Reindeer and Wirtz with 3 apiece. Bruno with 2. And what looks like the worst strike force of potentially all time, Thiago, Mateta, and Watkins, blankety, blankety, blank. And like, if I'm being completely honest, I hate these boys. You know, no, I do. Like, do you know what? No, but you know when you look at your FPL team and you go, I love these boys. Like, you know, like Pedro's my guy. Like, you know, you start calling players your boy and stuff like that. I can't say that about any of these losers at the minute. I hate every single one of them, and I can't wait to wildcard them all out of my team.
My God,
he's had a crash.
Well, I mean, I was so jealous of Mateta when you already had him, and obviously I was thinking about doing Watkins to Mateta, and obviously they didn't score, did they? But Thiago as well, not seen tonight, not in the squad at all, which is obviously a worry. Nacho, Sanchez, sounds like Maresca's come out and said no. It's Jorgensen's going to have to play in the league every now and again.
Seen that?
Which is interesting. All these little things that are coming out now, and obviously, I think for all those players that have wildcarded already, this is what we meant by not having all the information and stuff, because there's just little bits that are starting to come out again. But I mean, all of us with Watkins, we're going to talk about these players that are washed later on, whether they are or not. But he's 8.8 million now as well. He is just. Anybody that's over 3 million in rank, I said 3 million just to leave Nacho out there, you've got to be looking at someone like Watkins and saying, he's the reason. Like, it's not good. I mean, let's go on to the XGI stats, because one player that we've talked about for the last 2 weeks, and we had a big discussion last week, and I said, why haven't we got Haaland? And is this going to be one of those things like last year where people didn't move to Haaland quick enough and it's going to ruin them? And look what he did. 2 goals against Manchester United. His XGI is through the roof this season. 6.19 XGI. He is almost triple everybody else on this table. I mean, he's over double Mbumo, who's in second with 2.95. Semenyo with 2.88. Obviously, that's a penalty included as well, which we weren't expecting. Bruno in fourth. 2 United boys in the top 2. Gyökeres, Enzo Fernandez, Mateta, Anthony, Ismail Assar, all up there. Estivao is still above 2. And then we got Brooks, Grealish, Welbeck, Beto, and Schade all making up the top 15. Nacho. Haaland will be brought in by the droves now. He was 33%. That's likely going to be the lowest he'll be this season, especially with Salah going to AFCON over Christmas as well. Mm-hmm. Despite all of that, is this the week to bring him in, considering he's going to be playing the best defence in the world in Game Week 5?
The answer is no. The answer is absolutely no. I get the temptation for managers to want to go there in this game week, but I just don't really know why managers feel like they need to force it. I mean, away from home against Arsenal, we know that historically he has struggled at times against Gabriel and Saliba. And like you said, it is the best defence in the league. And I think right now Arsenal are probably, I would say, the best team right now in the league from a consistency perspective. I think we've seen some shaky moments from Man City. We've seen some shaky moments from Liverpool. I know Liverpool beat Arsenal, but I think from an actual team setup, we kind of know what we're getting from Arsenal each and every game week. Very solid from top to bottom. So I don't really see many goals being scored from Man City. And for that reason, I think if you're sat there right now thinking you have to own Haaland, I agree from game week 6, he's going to be fantastic. But for this particular game week, I just think it's a transfer that you do not have to make. Let the Champions League games happen. Let the game against Arsenal happen. And then we can reassess in game week 6, whether it be you free hitting in Haaland, wildcarding him in, or making a transfer. I think rolling your transfer in game week 5 and just giving yourself one additional game week is a better move than forcing him in for this real tricky game.
Yeah, I mean, Hibbo, there's somebody we could have forced in last week, which was Semenyo. Neither of us did it. If we did, we would have had 13, well, not 13 extra points, but 13 points from him. nobody knew he was going to be on pens, and anybody that says they did, I think are lying personally. That's maybe a big statement, but you know what I mean. But this has all the makings of being quite a big year for Semenyo. He started incredibly well, 2.88 XGI so far this season, and the majority of that is XG, which we're used to for him anyway. If there is a chance he's on penalties as well, there's no saying that Kluivert's going to come straight back into this side that's doing incredibly well. At his price at 7.5 million, is this going to be the season where we look at Semenyo and he's going to be heavily owned because he's a bit of a bargain?
Yeah, I think we talked about it before we came on air, and Semenyo is one of these players, I think, at Bournemouth, that he's got this main character energy. And if he has penalties, he's an incredible asset.
Yeah.
But even without penalties, I think he's looking good. And I think under Areola, like, Bournemouth have gone through a transition, I think, where they've become like a really good side. It looked that way last season, and it's very much continuing this season. And even though they've had to kind of change their lineup, and people like Solanke have left the club, they've had to kind of transition a bit within the team. There's players in that team like Scott, who scored a great goal at the weekend. Ryan Christie have been in the team, and now he's come out. Kerkes is gone. It hasn't really damaged them in any way, shape, or form. Like, you know, we talked about Bournemouth at the start of the season and said, look, they've lost their keeper, they've lost their left back, they've lost their main defender. Let's approach Bournemouth with, I suppose, a degree of trepidation, because we don't really necessarily want to dive in. But they've just kind of continued where they've left off. Now, I think the main kind of takeaway looking at this table is, like, Haaland's obviously ridiculously clear, but none of the other players are posting huge numbers. Yeah. But the fact that Semenyo's sitting here at the minute, 4 game week sample still kind of quite small, he's posting strong numbers. And I think if you add what you have to call the potential of penalties long term, they were a wee bit up in the air. Like, we've seen Kluivert's taking penalties, we've seen Evan Nilsson's taking penalties. Who's to say Semenyo doesn't keep them long term? And I think it's a good punt for people. Like, even though we started at 7 and he's maybe going to 7, I think at 7.4 now, he's still cheap enough.
Yeah.
He's a buzzy kind of player. He looks as if he could potentially in some games pick up DEFCON, but I think he's got enough goal threat. He can assist if the penalties are there. I just think he's a ridiculous asset, and I think everybody will have him.
Yeah, I mean, it's mad looking at this table and obviously recommending the guys in first and third. Nacho, can we recommend the guys in second and fourth, Mbeumo and Bruno Fernandes? United, they have so many shots. Mbeumo missed a sitter at the weekend against City as well, and has got 1 goal this year, but they're both averaging over 2.8 XGI. So they both got over 2.8 XGI so far this season. Obviously, Bruno with the 2 penalties. Surely at some point something's got to click, and we can invest in an Mbeumo. And I know people already have Bruno Fernandes, but there's a lot of those underlying stats are there. But obviously, there's nothing happening at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like a classic case that if Amorim does leave, all of this Man United team just become valuable picks, like really, really good picks, because in Bournemouth's price point right now, a new manager comes in, plays this United team how we all think they should play in a 4-2-3-1, then I think they suddenly become back on the menu. But as of right now with Amorim, don't get me wrong, I think Bruno Fernandes and Mbeumo will remain good picks in the game. And if you own Bruno, I think you probably have other fires in your team that you need to put out. I look at the fixtures coming up. I mean, they've got Chelsea at home. Like, would I be surprised with Chelsea's defensive problem? I say problems. People have killed me in the comments on a previous video on this. I don't think Chelsea are all over the place, but we just have clangers in us with the defenders that we have and no leadership at the back. So I do think there is a potential for that goal. Brentford away, I think is fine. And then Sunderland. So I think it's a classic case. If you own Man United, you probably keep them. Do not be buying them. And if Amorim does actually get the boot, which I don't think he will, then I think that we are going to be looking at them from a different light, because we're going to get Bruno in a 10. We're going to get Mbeumo in the positions we want him to be, not veering off onto the right wing at times. So for me, keep if you own them, avoid buying them, and reassess after game week 7 when they have Sunderland at home.
Yeah. And let's have a look at some CBIT as well, because I did say at the beginning of this stream that there's 2 players that have got CBIT for defenders every single week so far this season, and that is Senesi and Tarkowski. Both have 2 clean sheets. Senesi also got a assist in there as well. Both absolutely smashed it in terms of points. Hibbo, a lot of people have been wildcarding. A lot of people are thinking about wildcarding in the next couple of weeks. Despite fixtures, without even looking at fixtures, can you pick players like Tarkowski and Senesi in your team because they are fixture proof in terms of the fact that they just look like they get? I mean, Tarkowski in particular, just he gets DEFCON by half time half the time.
I don't know if I would see somebody like Tarkowski as fixture proof. I do take the point about DEFCON, but like I think my key takeaway from looking at this table was the amount of cheap value there is. You know, there's lots of players on this that are basically like sub 5, like 4.5 million. And like we're looking at, say, Anderson at the weekend, clean sheet, bonus, DEFCON, potential they had like a double digit haul. You would never really thought about that before. And like I shared, I don't know if we're going to refer to it later on in the stream, but I shared the team with the boy who's basically overall ranked number 1 at the minute. Yeah. And you thought I was joking. But his team's basically a Haaland Salah team. He doesn't have a Palmer. I think he's got Grealish on there. He's got double Spurs defence. He's got double Arsenal defence. And I think if you look at some of these DEFCON defenders, especially the guys that are kind of sub 5, is there the potential that you can go really big hitting with 2 good captaincy options, which, to be fair, we didn't really think it was viable. But like the manager that's done that, the guy that's number 1, he swerved, say, Bruno. He swerved Palmer. He's gone cheaper in the midfield slots. And he's still been able to afford a reasonably decent defence with a couple of these kind of DEFCON enablers in there. Like I think Senesi has been incredible. Like you're looking at him for like what now, 4.6 DEFCON every week. There's a big difference between like a Senesi at his price and Tarkowski at 5.5. I wouldn't really feel that any defender's completely fixture proof. DEFCON gives you, I suppose, a higher floor in the fact that you're looking at a player's going to go, look, the worst he's going to get is probably 3 points this week. But the ceilings there with these guys too, they do kind of 10, 11 points. But I'm drawn in by the guys that are like, who's 4.5? Who's sub 5? Because they're nice wee guys that you could basically supplement your defence. And we've kind of moved away, I think, in the Premier League because like Trent's left the league. You're looking at Liverpool and like Kirkias has just dropped like generational stinker after generational stinker. So he hasn't become like the fullback equivalent of like a new Trent or a new Robertson. So we don't really have these kind of really attacking, marauding fullbacks, I think, in the league at this point in time that we can hang our hat on for attacking returns, bar maybe somebody like Porro, even though he doesn't produce quite frequently. So I think
Munoz, I guess. The
balance has kind of shifted very much to centre-backs. And for me, it's kind of like, well, who are the cheap guys that you could thin out 3 spots in your defence and still have a really, really good team. And I think it's nice to get a picture at this early stage. Well, who's doing it? Who's doing it 3 weeks out of 4? Who's doing it every week? You know.
Yeah, and for those people that listen on the pod, by the way, the people that are on this list, you've got Senesi and Tarkowski that are 100% hit their DEFCON so far. At 75%, we've got Lacroix, Vandenberg, Ekdal, who's for Burnley, if you didn't know, Anderson, Collins, and then we've got De Ligt. And then at 50%, we've got Van Dijk, Keane, Agbadou, who I really like, by the way. I like Agbadou, although Wolves are awful. Chalobah, Rodon, Alderete, and Cher. So, Nacho, if you were wildcarding this week, next week, week after, whenever it is, how closely would you look at DEFCON for these central defenders when you're picking your wildcard team? Because, like Hibbo's just said, there seems like there's some bargains. And if you can get a player that you think, yeah, they're going to get a clean sheet that week, like you did with Anderson this week, surely that should be in your thoughts for a wildcard or picking your team again.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said earlier. I really do think that we're moving away from the attacking fullbacks as FPL picks and vying more towards these 90-minute centre-backs who, as we said, are a bit more predictable in terms of what their returns are going to be. And if we were building a wildcard team right now, I mean, I'll be looking at the top of this table and also looking at the fixtures, because we need to remember it's all well and good bringing in someone like Anderson, who is great for defensive contributions. But when I look at the fixtures coming up, Brentford at home, fantastic. But then they got Villa. Well, they don't score goals, but let's say they do find form. Bournemouth away, Arsenal, Newcastle, Wolves. So even though Anderson is great for defensive contributions, if we were to assume that maybe 1 clean sheet over the next 6, 2 at best, then we are really only having a floor of 3 or 4 points, which is totally fine. But it's trying to get the balance of those that do actually get defensive contributions and good fixtures Wolves being top of the ticker over the next 6. Someone like an Agbadou is a really nice pickup, as we know he is ticking over quite nicely with his defensive contributions. I think as well, sometimes with the big teams like a Virgil van Dijk, we might see them defensive contributions drop off once the fixtures get good. Whereas a team like Wolves, even when the fixtures are quote unquote good, I still expect him to rack up those contributions because they're not clear of any team in the league right now.
Yeah, and I suppose the thing with Agbado is that we're not expecting clean sheet. Like he's the only one on here without a clean sheet yet this season. If he can start getting them, or if you can find a 4.5 that's getting those DEFCONs and you've got that chance for clean sheet, then you're kind of hitting gold there, really, aren't you? And when you look at this list, Lacroix, like 5 million, and I've got Richards. Richards is pretty good at getting them as well. You know, they've kept 3 clean sheets so far this season. And you look at that and think, that's great in terms of an asset moving forward. Senesi, like we said, they've kept 2, so 50% of the time they've kept clean sheets this season. It's nice looking at those kind of players and thinking I could probably invest in somebody like that. But like I said, when we move forward into the next couple of weeks and we start looking at maybe wildcard, and if that's what people are doing, I think this is probably where they're going to be going. And like you said, 90-minute centre-backs, when we're not just looking at 90 minutes, we're looking at all that injury time sometimes as well. They can rack up the DEFCON in injury time as well. So I think it's the way it's going to be going. And the big thing, I suppose, with this is that pre-season when we were looking at DEFCON, it was all about Forest as well. Forest were great for it. And look what's happened now this season. Obviously, Ange has now come in and it's not looking good for DEFCON. So, yeah, things have obviously adjusted. And I think working with this season's way that certain teams are playing, because last season, you know, the systems changed and things like that, and maybe DEFCON's changed. And now looking at this season, after, I know it's still a small sample size, but maybe we're starting to see some of those patterns emerging as to how teams are playing this year. So these tables, by the way, you know, if you are listening on the pod, make sure you do have a look, because I think when you're building your team for a wild card moving forward in the next couple of weeks, I think these tables are going to be invaluable for what you want to do. Now,
but just a quick point, not Andy, before you move on. It's like you're basically referring and alluding to like new information.
Yeah.
And the reality is we didn't have any information on Senesi because he spent the last season practically injured. By the time he was ready to come back onto the side, they had an established centre-back pairing as Barney and Huyson. Those guys have both left. He's come on the team. But I think if we looked at, say, like Dean Huyson, we could see that the baseline was there for a Bournemouth defender, but we didn't really have the data on Senesi, so we were probably, again, a wee bit tentative, and then we didn't really know defensively how they would work. So I think, nailing the head, you're right. Like, I think we have to look at 4-week samples and 5-week samples and 6-week samples, despite the fact that they're small, and take some kind of information out of it before we wildcard, like, basically.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, when you wildcard, if it is in the next couple of weeks, looking at this information and looking at fixtures moving forward, I think you can make a pretty good picture as to what you want from these men. And like Nacho said, 90-minute centre-backs, you're not really going to have to worry about them moving forward. And those people that went for Van der Ven and Romero are absolutely laughing at the moment, but that's more to do with Van der Ven goals. But there you go. Right, let's have a look. We were talking about valuable and how valuable players are. The players we're going to be talking about next are not very valuable at the moment. In fact, they are losing value in our team. So we have got, boom, the wheel of washed. So we don't do a wheel that often. We did one pre-season. We got another one now, and Hibbo's trying to see who those players are. There's one spicy one in there. So we've got the wheel of wash now. So I'm going to spin the wheel, and these boys are going to debate whether those players are wash. You're going to take it in turns because we don't have enough time for you to both talk about each player. So I'm going to spin the wheel and see which player we get first. And chat, unfortunately, I can't see you while this is up because my screen's used up doing this. So the first one, we're going to go to Nacho because it is Rogers who's up first. Rogers, he has comfortably...
Oh, sounds so weird, mate.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's because it's cheering. Rogers has comfortably the worst XGI of any player on this wheel. 0.12 XGI per 90 so far this season. He has 2 clean sheet points, so that's pretty good, but they haven't scored a goal yet, Villa. They have scored a goal tonight. Is Rogers done at the moment, and should we be doing everything possible to sell him?
Yeah, I find I'll play devil's advocate because I think I've always been saying a lot of the time, keep for the fixtures. Sunderland coming up, Fulham, and then Burnley. Get rid of him from game week 8 onwards. But to be honest with you, The thing about Rodgers last season was that he was a great price, much cheaper than what he is now. And also the numbers were really consistent. We always seen him pick up some big chances, always in the right areas. And how long do you actually wait until things do start to change? We don't actually know if Morgan Rodgers is the guy anymore, whether it's Harvey Elliott. So I personally think if you're in a position where you've got a couple of transfers in the bank, Rodgers to Semenyo feels like a very easy move. Going away against Sunderland feels the wrong time to do so, but who would I rather have this week? Semenyo or Rodgers? Semenyo every day of the week. It's just how problematic the rest of your team is right now, because you're probably sat there with double Villa like myself, and then you go weigh up which one's actually the worst.
I almost started the season with triple Villa. One of my drafts was Marlon, Rodgers and Watkins. I say I'd be washed. Look at me, I'm 5 million, but maybe I'll be even worse than that. Right, so there you go. There's Rodgers to start us off. Let's have another little spin. This one's for Hibbo. Hibbo, your wheel of washed lands on Mateta. So Mateta for you. Is he washed? He's got 1 goal so far this season, including a yellow card during that goal, which was a penalty because he smashed the the corner flag. He's averaging 0.56 XGI per 90 so far this season. What do you think about Mateta?
Yeah, Mateta, I'm not really sure Mateta's washed. I think we're looking at, and we've discussed this in previous weeks, we didn't really know how Palace would react to losing a couple of their key players. I think they performed well at the weekend. They were quite unlucky. Roofs made a lot of good saves. I think there was a potential that Munoz and Mateta could have combined for a couple of goals. And then that changes the picture, it changes the landscape. But we still think he's got pens. And I think at that price point, look, it doesn't really feel like his moment right now, if you know what I mean. But I do think that there's a chance in the near future that Mateta basically comes back and they're thinking, I think if you were trying to pick an ideal front three at the minute, you would have Haaland on there, you would have Pedro on there, and you would potentially have another striker, maybe Gyökeres or somebody like that. So I think on that basis, he wouldn't be included in that 3, but I don't think he's washed. I think there's potential there, especially, like, we know he's on pens. I think once the fixtures are there, you would hope that he's going to perform. He didn't do it at the weekend, but look, I think we could see Mateta come good in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. He was probably the one I put in here that I least agreed with, but I've got to put it in there still. Let's have a look. Nacho, your next one on the wheel of washed is Reijnders. Had an excellent game week 1, 10 points. Since then, not really done it. He almost returned this week with a 1-on-1, 0.23 XGI per 90, but he does play an awful lot of minutes. Do you think Reijnders is washed?
No, I do not think he's washed. I think we're in a position right now with Man City where we're getting a few players back, like a Phil Foden. We don't have Cherky back or Marmoush. But right now with this Man City team, Rodri's back. He kind of is there now for the long term. We know that Erling Haaland is operating down the middle. So we have places up for grabs right now in this team. But I think one that can't really be replaced is going to be Reijnders. I think the positioning that he's taking it up, I don't think Bernardo Silva's got the legs to do so. I don't think Foden's got the discipline to play in that role either. So I think Reijnders is still going to remain a 90-minute man even when these players do return from injury. And like we said, he was in a fantastic position picking up those kind of trademark third-man runs that he's doing now, where he nearly scored against Man United, where he dinked it just wide. And I think if you own him right now, he's perfectly fine to keep. He's a great price point, playing for one of the better attacks in the league. And I think you keep him. Yes, it's not ideal this week. I think you can bench him if you want to and have him in place for game week 6.
Nice. Let's move on to the next one. So next one for Wash, which would be for you, Hibbo, and that is Murillo. So obviously kind of Forest defence in general. Murillo's got an injury already. Well, we don't know whether he's going to be playing next week. He's got 1 DEFCON so far. They've obviously got Ange now in. They've got 0 clean sheets. What do you think about Murillo?
I think overall as an option, he feels washed. Now, it sounds like a big claim because I know Forest were good for clean sheets last season. I think when we look at last season's DEFCON, they obviously did very well. He was very good. But I think overnight the needles moved. We referred to this last week. Now that Ange is on, I think you're going to see a different brand of football at Forest. I don't think it's going to be conducive to DEFCON. I think Murillo has maybe one good fixture left to come. They have a good fixture this week, is it?
They got 2.
They have
Sunderland and Burnley.
They've
2 good fixtures.
They've Sunderland and Burnley. So, like, I think on the basis of those fixtures, if I had one of these guys now, I would probably keep them, to be completely honest with you, just on the basis of the fixtures. That's obviously injury permitting, but I do think long term, I'm going to call Murillo washed.
Yeah.